in the Middle East, there is quite a, unfortunately, a simplistic way of financing. There, people look at equity and think about IPOs, and then on the other side, they think of debt and simple bank debt. And that's been the way for quite a while, but what we're seeing now is there's a whole lot of structures in the middle. And so we can see equity and we can see hybrid securities now, and hybrid securities include preference shares, convertibles, mezzanine debt, and then we can move down the structure a bit further and we can look at the likes of longer term bonds and private placements, and then into normal bonds and sukuks, and then down to the simple bank lending, which we're seeing now. So what I'm seeing the development in the Middle East is that people are now using a lot of these intermediary financings. And what's growing around that is that the banks are not really providing it, but the investment banks are suggesting it, and then they're distributing it to their client base. And we're seeing the likes of other private equity firms and investment firms who are more cutting edge also providing the capital for such investments. So that's where I see the growth market is in the capital raising and for additional capital for companies in the Gulf. This type of conference is very important for several reasons. Firstly, I find that it brings everyone together from all over the Middle East. And it's not just the buy side and the sell side, the bankers and the clients, the treasurers, the investment managers, the CFOs, so they can all get to meet and we get to see each other, catch up with a lot of old friends, of course, but it's a sharing of ideas. When I brought up in my panel discussion the ideas of a hybrid or a preference share, that raised a lot of questions and interest, and I've been speaking to a lot of people in post the fact about how we did it, who we talked to, and I've also talked about a lot of other structures we are looking at, which we do for our joint ventures. So I find it's a meeting of minds and sharing of ideas and making new friends as well. The panel we had this time was very good. Unusual in the fact that all the panel members have been on both the buy side and the sell side of the business. So they've been through investment banks or normal banks, and then they've also worked for corporates. So now they are in legal, they are the CFOs, the treasurers, the CEOs of companies, and they historically had worked on the bank side. So in their advice and their discussions, they could provide the pros and cons from both the buyer and seller side, which was a very unique vision into the discussion we had. The three topics and themes which we covered in our panel and got a lot of attention were firstly forms of funding for growth capital, and we introduced different types of funding, as I said, in the intermediary market. Then also we discussed the role of banks, and also we talked about corporate governance. The roles of banks was very interesting because, as I said, we had people who've been on the banking side and on the government side. So what they could talk about was the value add banks can bring, and of course their fees come with it. People tend to see the fees, but not the value. So we could actually show them not only the value banks bring, but also the distribution networks they have. Another very interesting topic was the corporate governance. And the corporate governance in the Middle East needs to be developed a lot. There are companies which have come here and they're new and they bring Western-style corporate governance with them now. But the issues are with some of the older companies here who grew up here where they don't really use corporate governance, and there's a disconnect between new and old. And so there's a vibrant discussion about corporate governance and the issues and what we're doing about trying to educate the market here about the need for corporate governance and bringing it up to a high level in line with other Western countries.